There are less than 24 hours left to vote in Series 10 of the Bricklink Designer Program, and if you haven't voted yet, you absolutely should. Your vote genuinely influences which fan designs become official LEGO sets. Today I'm going through my top 25 castle and medieval fantasy submissions from this wave. I originally planned to narrow it down to a top 10, but the quality this round was just way too strong. Just to be clear, this list isn't ranked in any particular order. These are simply the 25 castle and fantasy projects that stood out to me the most. Let's get into it. First, we have the White Mare Watch Castle by Mocker Mommy. I love the non-traditional tan and white color scheme instead of the typical gray, and the blue roofs fit perfectly with the Horse Knight's colors. The scale is in line with the Lion Knight's Castle and BDP Mountain Fortress, and a lot of the sets we're going over today do as well. There isn't a ton of interior space since the exterior is definitely the focus, but I don't mind that at all because this works really well as a display piece. At 3,999 parts, it would probably be around $350, and for something that looks this good, I think that would be worth it. Next, we've got the Wizard's Tower by Ziegel0802. Of course, the big 4,000 piece castles look amazing, but it's nice to have some castle builds that aren't at the absolute top price point, such as the recent Alchemist shop. I've seen this one submitted in previous series, and I like this version the most, especially the minifigure lineup. It has a dollhouse style interior, and while there isn't a massive amount of space, what's there is really used well. I especially love the zigzag shaping of the tower and the trees growing out of the sides. At 2,684 pieces, I'd expect it to land around $210. This next set is a style that the Bricklink Designer Program really needs, a proper medieval joust. This is another build by Mocker Mommy, and it's not the last one from them on this list. I love the symmetrical design of the main structure, and the mix of stone and wood looks fantastic. The Horse Knights are hosting the tournament, so they don't have a tent, but the other three factions do, and I really like that all four current factions are represented. We haven't had a true jousting set since the Kingdoms Joust about 15 years ago, so any sort of updated tournament set will be awesome. This one comes in at 3,099 pieces, so I'd guess around $270. That would be an easy buy for me. Going to a smaller build, we have the Epic Siege Beast by Brickhooker. This clearly feels inspired by the Mumakil from Lord of the Rings, and as a fan of Tolkien's work, that makes me like it even more. You can't submit sets based on non-LEGO owned IPs for BDP, but since this is faction based with the Griffin and Kraken Knights, there aren't any issues. The brick-built elephant looks incredible and is fully posable, and I really like this structure mounted on its back. At 1,559 pieces, it would probably be around $120, and once again, an easy buy for me. Back to another 4,000 piece castle, we have Stone Spire Castle by BrickDude8. The castle itself looks great, but what really stands out to me is the rockwork surrounding it. The dark gray and dark tan contrast nicely with the lighter walls and dark red roofing. This one focuses more on interior space than something like White Mare Watch, and it really reminds me of the Lion Knight's castle with the dollhouse style layout. At 4,000 pieces, it would likely sit around $350, similar to other recent sets at that size. As I briefly mentioned in my Series 7 video, I really think we need more smaller sets in BDP. A lot of the talented castle builders focus on the massive 4,000 piece limit, which makes sense, but this one is perfect for that lower price point. Tentacles and Raft by Delusion B is exactly what I'd want in a small BDP castle set. The main build is an intricately detailed raft with a Kraken Knight, and as a side build, there's a small rock with an octopus and a skeleton. It's compact, but still feels complete. Since it's a smaller set, I think it might actually have a decent chance of making it to the final 5. At 687 parts, it would probably end up around the $55 price point. Once again, we have another mock from Mocker Mommy. This one is the Scarlet Bastion. It's home to the Griffin Knights and has a beautiful dark red color scheme that really pops. It would stand out especially well next to other more traditional castle builds. Like some of their other designs, it uses a dollhouse layout and has strong overall shaping. It's another 4,000 piece castle, so probably around $350, but visually, it's one of the strongest Griffin builds in this wave. Next up is Argon Vla, the Orcs Village by Calais. I'm a big fan of this style for orcs or trolls. The wooden structures with bones woven through them gives off strong World of Warcraft vibes, and I'm glad to see something like this in BDP. The orcs themselves are limited by what's currently available on Pick-a-Brick, but the sand green monster heads from the haunted house work well enough. If this did become a real set though, you could always swap in your own upgraded orcs. It's another 4,000 piece build, probably around $350, but it stands out because it's so different from the typical stone castles. Now for something right up my alley, the Medieval City Port by Mac. I love medieval ports and city style builds, and the variety of color across the buildings here is great. There's something happening everywhere you look. The interiors are fairly thin, so there's not a lot of usable space, but the designer used that space well with furniture and details. It's just under 4,000 pieces, and I'd guess maybe around $320, depending on how pricing works out, since it uses a lot of small pieces. Continuing with the sea theme, we have Riptide Port by Shika Noko 1244. The heavy use of sand green is uncommon in castle builds, but it works really well for a stone structure covered in seaweed and algae. I like the fun interiors here, even if they're not extremely complex. Also, the giant octopus is such a fun fantasy element and fits perfectly with the Kraken Knights. At 3,146 pieces, I'd expect it to be around $280. Going back to a slightly smaller build, we have the Snowstorm Inn. I love the snowy setting since we don't see that very often in castle mocks or BDP submissions. The interior feels small but cozy, which contrasts nicely with the cold winter exterior. My only concern is the piece count. It uses a lot of small elements, and at 2,309 pieces, it might end up around $150. I'm not entirely sure how people would feel about that price for the size. Earlier I mentioned wanting another jousting set, and Festival Games by MD Builds is another strong option. This one expands beyond just jousting with duels, archery, and side builds that give it a full festival atmosphere. There's even a tavern above the stable, which I think is a nice touch. At 3,925 pieces, I'd estimate around $350. Now we may have lost the Forestman from Pick-a-Brick, but that hasn't stopped people from creating forest-based builds. The Deep Forest Headquarters by PK is such a cool overgrown outpost, although I would swap the faction for Forestman if I got it. The exterior looks fantastic, and when you open it up, there's a nicely decorated interior. It sits at 2,587 pieces, so it'll probably be around $200. Soul Keeper's Sanctum by Mad Dad Bricks leans heavily into fantasy. From the brick-built creatures to the creatively shaped tower, this one just looks sick. There aren't many builds focused on non-knight fantasy factions, partially because the parts palette is very limited, but skeletons are a great workaround. At 2,743 pieces, I'd expect it to be around $240. Valley Castello by Hallowed Brick is one of those few mostly gray castles that really grabbed my attention. The orange accents create a unique look, and they especially work well for the Griffin Knights. It folds open like the Lion Knight's castle and makes good use of space without feeling overcrowded. It's another 4,000 piece build, once again probably coming in around $350. From the creator of the sushi restaurant, which was probably my favorite non-castle BDP set, we have the Training Ground by Brick Project. This is definitely one of my favorites in this entire wave. The angled construction and round shaping are incredibly clean, and even with limited interior space, every level feels packed with detail. At 3,661 pieces, it would probably land around $300. Crimson Isle by Cristro Mans fits perfectly with my idea of the Griffins and Krakens as opposing sea factions. I love the look of it being elevated on a rocky base, along with the stone walls being reinforced by wood. The lower interiors are a bit simpler, but the upper sections are strong. It's right near 4,000 pieces, so likely around $360. Watchers of the Midnight Sea by Pepe Frost is a unique pirate castle hybrid that leans heavily into fantasy architecture. The shaping and texturing are very creative on this build. It might not appeal to everyone, but I think it's really cool, although it's another almost 4,000 part set, so likely it would be around $350. Coastal Base by Brickley Bricks 82 is another seaside fort for the Griffins, this time focusing on a tower and lighthouse design. The interiors are very clean, although I'm not the biggest fan of the forced dollhouse style. I am a fan of the rockwork here since it looks great and helps save parts. It's another almost 4,000 piece design, so it too would likely come in around $350. Moving to a smaller build, the Medieval Theater by It's Just a Name is such a fun concept. I love small sets like this that can complement a larger castle layout or hold their own as a cool display. The brick-built green dragon is adorable, and at 926 pieces, I could see it around $75. I really hope one of the smaller castle builds wins this time. Woodland Hollow by Graham Gidman features cozy houses built into a tree, and I absolutely love it. The staircase design is awesome, the interiors feel warm and detailed, and the exterior looks fantastic. This build is giving me some some mock inspiration for sure. At 3,156 pieces, I'd expect it to be around $280. Emerald Abyss is yet another mock by Mockermami. The black works really well for a darker Kraken stronghold. Like their other builds, it features interesting angles, strong exterior detailing, and a simpler interior to prioritize display. At 4,000 pieces, it would likely sit around $360. I just want to give a huge props to Mockermami for creating 5 high-quality designs in this wave. Most people do 1, occasionally 2, but 5 builds of this caliber is really impressive. Wyvern Encounter by So Bricks feels like a modern take on the old Viking sets. The brick-built Wyvern looks great at that scale, and the ship design is clean. It's yet again a smaller set that I would love to see hit top 5. At 850 pieces, I could easily see this around $70. Driftwood Keep by Brickhammer is one that many people thought deserved a slot in Series 9, so now we have another chance in Series 10. The combination of stone walls, rockwork, and Tudor-style wood structures looks fantastic. The interior is simpler, but the exterior and side boat build really shine. It's just under 4,000 pieces, so likely around $350. Earlier, we looked at some larger tournament builds, but Medieval Tournament by Hello Zol comes in at just under 2,000 pieces. If the bigger 3 to 4K slots go to other sets, then this would be a great mid-sized option. It includes a Royal Spectator tent, faction tent, a jousting track, and other small builds that make it feel complete without being massive. At 1,930 pieces, I'd estimate roughly $170. Voting ends at 12 p.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Eastern, so if you haven't voted yet, go do it. Let me know which one of these were your favorites, and if you want to stay up to date on the Bricklink Designer Program or LEGO Castle in general, make sure to subscribe. As always, thank you for watching.